Well, how do you figure out what a price for a technology should be? Again, price has to be contextual because price is determined by the value you generate for the end user. So it's very difficult in the abstract to talk about price. Once we know who the end user is and the application where it's being used, the practice in which the technology is being deployed, we can figure out what would the end user pay for similar functionality or for an equivalent technology, a substitute technology. That gives us a benchmark. If we can't find that, we can think about the orders of magnitude that they usually pay for things. For example, if I'm looking at an acupuncture needle that an acupuncturist would work with, I know that the needles probably can't be priced much more, no matter how fancy they are, than $50 to $100, because I can look at the benchmarks for the other things that the acupuncturist buys, and I can begin to make some assumptions. On the other hand, if I'm looking at a needle that's used as a probe in surgery, the prices obviously can be substantially higher. So how do I deal with price before I know what the application is? Well, basically, I'm not looking at price. What I'm looking at when I just get a technology is cost. What should it cost to make this? What should it cost to make it in small batches, at a prototype level or a onesie-twosie level? If it's going to be scaled up and used with thousands and thousands of them, what do we think it'll cost when we're in production? That gives us the floor on the price, because nobody wants to lose money. So if we know what the floor is, then it's simply a question of two things. One is, what's the profit margin that you need in order to make it worthwhile doing it for whoever is commercializing it, the target downstream, the people selling it. And two, when I do have the application, what's an end user willing to pay for it, or the people who buy for it. But otherwise, price in the sense of a market price doesn't really make a lot of sense when I first have invented something. I need to think much more about cost rather than price, and the trick there is to remember that the cheaper it is, the better it is, except for we don't want cheap in the sense of junk, we want cheap in the sense of inexpensive. So that said, let's go on to talk about stretch in the next session. Well, in common sense language, stretch means this. And I sort of lean up and I pull those muscles and they loosen up and they can go farther. Well, similarly, when we're talking about technology, that's what stretch is about. We know that for any given metric that we're measuring our technology on, any engineering metric or ease of use metric or even a price metric, there is a yield. That is to say, there's a measurement we can take and say, right now it's there. The question is, how much can we improve that? Improve it in a positive way. Now, sometimes in price, positive may mean making it lower, but nonetheless, we're talking about improving it in a way that is likely to make it more desirable. Take a technology like the zipper. At a certain point, the zipper can be improved. It can be made more rust-proof by making it out of plastic, so on and so forth. But at some point, the stretch begins to go out of it. And if you want something that's easy for a child to do and the zipper's not, then you go to Velcro. So there's only so much stretch on certain ease of use metrics for the zipper. Whatever your technology is, you want to think about it as something that's going to evolve over time, because if you're going to introduce it to an application, you have to assume competition will come in. The competition will drive performance, ease of use up and price down, so that users will be more inclined to buy what the competition offers rather than what you do. And the question becomes, does your technology have the stretch to maintain its competitive advantage as that happens? So that's what stretch is about. It's about how much flexibility is there to improve the technology on the metrics that are likely to be of interest as you move downstream to end users. Since we're not sure who the end users are yet, we can say, given where the secret sauce lies and the unique stuff that this technology does, can we improve it, or are we sort of at the physical limits. You know, if we're by absolute zero, if we're trying to get something cooler, we're making a refrigerator, it cools to absolute zero, ain't going to go any farther. It's just the way it is. On the other hand, if it's only cools to room temperature, there's obviously a lot of room for improvement there. So that is our discussion of stretch. When we come back, we'll shift to another topic, which is who owns the technology?